Hey, it's TDA and welcome back to this Dyson Sphere Let's Play. This is episode 3 of my By the Book Let's Play using blueprints to kind of speed up the process, allow you to play along, and in general show you how some fun builds can be made without actually having you watch me do it step by step and waiting for all the sorters and belts to be connected. If you like that thing though, look at my other playthrough. It shows you pretty much all the basic steps about the first maybe few hours of the game, and really step by step. So if that's your thing, check out the other playthrough. This will be a little bit more aimed at people that have a little bit of experience with the game and kind of speed things up by doing that. What we want to do in this specific part of the game is set up our mall or hub or whatever you want to call it, setting up shop. Maybe that's a good title for this episode. Basically, we want to stop handcrafting all kinds of buildings and have the game do that for us. There's a good reason why you might want to make blueprints for this, because it's really tedious to set it up the first time. Really figuring out which buildings should be going in which order because they need certain materials. I think I found a pretty nice order of the buildings. It's not going to include all buildings, well, actually almost all buildings except for one, the wireless power towers. The chargers that I used for the mass builds are not part of this design because I only built 3 in the entire game. So yeah, if you want to build more of those, be my guest. You might want to add that in somewhere along the end of this build. It's not in my build. Again, I only think you need 3 in the entire game, so yeah, maybe 4. Yeah, but yeah. So we are going to build our little mall. I will walk you through that, but before I do that, I realize we're almost out of belts. Now, that is actually part of the mall as well, but might as well use this while we have it, because we have this little stack of belts over there. I'm actually going to reduce this a little. We won't be needing that much belts from this direction anymore, so that will avoid us running out. Let's have some of this. Put that in there. There we go, so we have some power as well while we walk past it. There we go. Okay, so building stuff. We want to probably handcraft a few of those. We will need a lot of these. Again, they're part of the build as well, but we will handcraft a few to begin. Okay, so as you can see, belts coming up. We need to make sure we get a lot of materials in over here, and I put some markers on the belts. So if you're using these belts for your own game, you know what goes where. Let's see, we need to connect these things up. So the circuit boards go over there. Does this work? Actually, I haven't tried that. Yeah. Okay, that looks pretty neat. There we go. So yeah, that takes care of the magnetic coils and the circuit boards. We need stone to come in, which is a little bit annoying the way this is set up right now, because it's actually on the wrong side of the where we would normally want that. It's kind of reversed from my previous playthrough, so you can actually just change this up if you want. It won't be a big deal, so let's do that like that. We have the stone coming in from down here, I think. Yeah, I do want to make sure we double up on that, so having a full belt of stone will be useful. And we have the room to do that, so we might as well. So let's connect that up. A full belt of stone implies that we can actually make 6 smelters. For those of you who are a little bit newer to Dyson Sphere, remember that you can shift click something you've already built. It includes the sorters, and you can drag that like this wait until the belts are constructed, because otherwise the sorters won't connect. Release. And then not only will the smelters be built, but they will be built with the blueprints or the recipe already included. So really easy and really nice. As I mentioned on the previous episode, if you are using a stockpile, make sure you have one thing in, one thing going out. And that way it won't obstruct the flow of your crafting. We need to make sure it's powered. This is a little bit further than it needs to go. There we go. And if we bring that back here, and then up here, if you press up, it will go up a level, like that. And then, there we go. Nice little bridge. Is it the most pretty layout that you can make? Nope. So if you want to spend some more time and making all of your own builds look very pretty, or very clean, depends of course on your preference, what you think is actually a nice clean build and what's not, then by all means do so. I like this being efficient at the start, getting these things done. The game is long enough without fine-tuning the first builds. It's easily gonna take you maybe 50 to 100 hours to actually make a full Dyson Sphere, complete the build, especially in your first playthroughs. So speeding up the early game is definitely not gonna hurt your playtime in terms of staying efficient. My power is low, which is actually reducing the speed that we're building, so this is again where the power towers come in. We stand between them, we get charged up, and our drones keep building at max speed. Power is getting low, mostly because we're using it to charge ourselves, but we might as well build a few more of these while we are standing still and waiting. I really hate the whole forest of these things that are here now, but that's an easy way to fix pretty early on down the line. Do I need to craft anything else? I might as well craft some of those. You can never have enough power towers. Let's steal a stack of those. If you control-click in an empty space in your inventory, it gets sorted, which is really nice, because it gets really messy really quickly otherwise. And I think I should be able, yeah, there we go, to build a few more of those now. Okay, so the mall. There's a couple of things going on here. So I'm starting out with some of the simpler basic builds. We have belts coming in, sorters coming in, miners, smelters. Those are all the things that you need to craft anything else. So you really need those, and of course you need everything else as well. But it makes sense to start with the basics. I also try to make the order make sense in such a way that you actually start with the things you need early on first. Sorry, also thematically, because these are all like getting raw items created into their first things, whereas the later buildings are more higher tier items, more later game stuff. You also need those, and you might actually need them in large quantities as well. But if you do it like this, then you can make sure that you have the basics first when you need them. We will actually need more iron as well. Did I mention in the last few games? There's no such thing as enough iron in the early game. But this will take care of the stone, so let's complete that. And then we will have to build another line of supply in terms of iron. We can get that from there, or let's see, we have more iron around. We could bring it from over here. Again, it's on the wrong side, so do I want to do that? Not really. Do I have an alternative? Oh, I actually thought we had iron closer over here, but we don't. So it's either bringing it from down over there, or bringing it all the way up from over here. Which we could, to be honest. Yeah, why not? It's going to be ugly either way because we need it on this side rather than on the other side. You could, of course, flip the and build it from west to east, the whole thing. That's what I did in my original game, hence it's kind of flipped upside down now. But yeah, this is no problem either. Oh, we're actually almost getting close to our research being completed that we all queued up. Let's see, so solar collection is something we'll need. This one we can research already. This one we can't, but processors I think we can. It will take a while, so that should keep us occupied, and at that point we also want to start doing some of this stuff. I'm just going to queue that up, so we remember that that is still stuff we need to do. There we go. Okay. Let's charge ourselves up. Goes really quickly in the early game, so that's nice. But none of this is actually working right now because we still need iron. So. Yes. Now, blueprints. If I remember correctly, yes, I put a 6 smelter blueprint in here as well. So this is a nice little thing that you can use. Where are we going to put it? As you can see, look at the direction it's flowing. I put the inputs a little bit more outwards, so you can see where it's going in. If you can see the input is coming in from the right now. On the bottom belt, it's a little bit longer, so you can see, oh, that's the incoming belt. There's 2 blueprints, so there's a second one as well. That's actually the reverse of that, so you have A and B. This one has it on top, which is a little bit more convenient in this case because I will be bringing in the ore from the top. There we go. Am I out of smelters, really? I am. Okay. Also out of circuit boards, so apparently that's what our stockpile is good for. Just a stack of those, a stack of those, and a stack of those will probably be enough for the rest of our early game. Just make sure we have enough of those and we don't need to bother about them anytime soon. Now we do have still a couple of miners, and this is really nice because we have plenty of room to build another 2 miners over here. And thanks to our massive belt production, we have 1800 belts now, so that's never going to be a problem again for the foreseeable future. 1800 belts is quite a lot, even later in the game that will allow you to make some pretty decent builds. We do need to make sure this is powered. And while we're here in an area that we probably won't be using for a while, we might as well build some power over here. And we are getting low on power again, so charging ourselves up. Now, people are really divided about these wind turbines. Some people really like them, especially if you stack them like I'm doing now. I think it's nice and symmetric, so it's not that bad. Other people really hate them. It seems to be either one or the other. I think that people in the hate camp, like disliking the wind turbines, are probably the majority. Yeah, I don't know. I don't mind them that much. What I really like about the wind turbines is this is infinite power. There's no such thing as the wind going away at any point, at least not on this planet. There are planets that you won't actually be able to use wind power, but your starting planet will always allow you to do so, obviously, because it's the only source of power you have initially. It's free power. It can't run out ever, no matter how long you play. So yeah, I like that. Might as well do that. This is an empty build. It's just smelters. Just so you don't have to build, whenever you want to build a full belt of smelters, you can do so. Remember that if you, okay, so this is actually worth showing at least once. if you drag these out, it will just put the smelters all together. If you press tab, it will start spacing them out. So initially 3 by 3, which is what I have here, but like I'll show over here, if you want, for example, you press tab again, it will put them 2 by 2, then it will space them out even further, it will space them out even further, and then if you keep pressing tab, it will do the reverse. That is really convenient if you want to build larger constructions with nicely evenly spaced production. So good thing to know. It seems that's one of those things that the game tells you like once, but if you don't pay close attention, or you might even simply forget, it can really mess with your game later on. So, and again, not trying to make this look pretty, and all these wind turbines get in the way really fast, so I am going to be a little bit conservative, as in once I get close to my target, make it a little neater, but yeah, I just want this to work. Once again, putting up the power tower. We're still slowly progressing through our coal production, but if you use those power towers regularly, at least you slow that down a little bit and you avoid running out of power too soon, having to run back to chopping trees, etc. too often, like I said in the previous episode. Alright, so there is our iron coming in. While that is finishing up, let's keep working on our mall, because this was just the first part. Flipping it around, because we are working from the other direction. It's a really stable pattern, of course. Remember to connect it up. I will show you some more details once this gets completed. But as you can see, we have all the basics here. So we have the assemblers, the smelters, the miners, all the things you need initially, as well as the sorters and the belts. The blueprint already make sure you're not overproducing things initially, so I limited all the storage boxes to a size that makes sense to me, at least. The belts are not limited by that much. You need a lot of belts, but all the other buildings, if you have just one stack, that's usually enough. You do want to at some point scale up the production of some of these buildings. Just make sure, for example, smelters, at some point you will want to pick up like 150 smelters at one go. That's still only 3 stacks, by the way, so it's not that much. But at least initially, just keep the production low. You won't need massive amounts, and that just makes sure that your resources are not getting wasted or along the line on buildings that you don't actually need just yet. So that was part 2. Now we are putting down part 3. We did all the relevant research. I don't have to hesitate putting down everything else. So part 4. You do want to have the engines researched by the time you get to this point. Yeah, I can't put those over each other. I was hoping that would automatically connect the belts. You can make the blueprints in such a way that the belts automatically connect, but it's annoying. I haven't done so, and it only takes a few seconds to connect these things up. In the later builds, you won't have to connect anything up because of the size of the blueprints increasing by a lot. There we go. Yeah, so let's see. Again, the construction is slowing down. Why is it slowing down? Because my power is low. I'm stuck in this building for some reason. I want to be powered, so again, putting up the wireless power towers to speed things up. And there we go. This is actually not done, just to be clear. So, I mean, other than the fact that it's still building, but by what I mean by it's not done, the earlier buildings only need these 5 resources. So a lot of this stuff will instantly start building once we get to it. However, and that's why I put these memos on the belts, you will need to include glass at some point, which I haven't built yet here. Luckily we have stone here, so that's going to be really easy. And you also need steel. Not sure where my memo on that is. It is here somewhere, but it's on one of the belts that still needs to be built. But I think, if I remember correctly, yeah, there we go. It's going to be on one of these 3 lines, so it's on the outer one. Steel, again, one of the things we haven't built. We will need it, so since we now know where our build is going to stop, we can get that going. And of course, I have a blueprint for that. Steel is pretty straightforward. Where do we want to build that? Maybe we should keep it kind of compact. Again, look at the direction where the lines are flowing, so you can see where the input is and where the output is. Again, I make sure the output is a little bit more protruded than everything else. I don't have the smelters for this, but luckily we are now producing smelters. So there's 23 smelters, 22 assemblers. Not sure how we're on sorters. We actually used quite a bit of that as well. Some more belts, power towers. Hey, there's 50 of those. That should get us going on those for a while. 25 miners, which is really nice because we will need some iron. Yes, more iron. Again, always more iron, because iron gets turned into steel. Again, 2 miners will make a full belt. So any more than that is a waste, at least if you put it on the same belt. It won't actually get you any more production. There we go. Putting down the power towers again because we are low on power and that slows down the construction. Keep in mind that you have, at least I have by now, 4 drones. But there will only be 1 or 2 drones flying around if you're at low power, because they need your power in order to work. Again, putting down the power towers solves that problem, and it also makes sure you recharge a lot faster than when you just wait for the coal to do its thing, or the logs if you happen to have any coal in your immediate vicinity. Don't get worried about the power signals when you're charging yourself. It takes a lot of power, but as soon as you take the power towers down, that it gets fixed. Do not leave the power towers just idle. They consume quite a lot of power, 90 kilowatts per second. If you just keep them idle, it might not sound like a lot, but if you compare it to the production of 1 twin turbine, this is 300 kilowatts. So if you would leave those 3 power towers just standing there doing nothing, even if they're not powering you, they take up the same production of a full wind turbine and not actually doing anything. So that's quite intensive and quite frankly just a waste, so I don't recommend doing that. Yeah, so steel. Steel is iron turned 1 by 1. Sorry, 3 by 1. At least 3 iron into 1 steel. But because it takes a 3-second period to do so, and smelters, iron smelters, produce 1 iron every second, 1 smelter will actually be able to completely fill up 1 steel smelter. So that's a nice little ratio over here. As always, it's worth having a little stockpile of that. We need actual sorry, got lost there. I was wondering why this wasn't working, but there was 1 little belt missing over there. So yeah, we need these for that, and luckily we are now producing that, so we don't have to handcraft that. The first one should be coming up any second now. There we go. We will need a lot more of those. The nice thing about putting out these blueprints and then continuing to work, for example, like we are now on the steel. Didn't I just build a box? Oh, it actually... it actually stole it to continue building further on down the line. Okay, anyway. The nice thing about doing it like this is that because we're doing it, we're building one thing, manually building a few things while this is also building over there, it's a lot more efficient in terms of your time than just waiting for one thing to build and then building another thing, waiting for that to build, building another thing, waiting for that to build, etc. This is just a seamless transition from one to the other. Yeah, and that just means it's doing its job while you're doing something else. Same holds for the research. I just queued up all the research. We don't have a massive research production at the moment, but we don't need to, because this is just slowly plugging away. This is actually going in the wrong direction, I think. Yep, this needs to be steel. So, yeah. Same holds for this one. I'll talk you through that in a second, because so we started out with iron over here. Let's zoom in a little bit because that might be hard to see. Iron over here on one belt, copper over here on another belt. We have gears, we have circuit boards, and we have coils. So again, basic materials that we built in our first two little starter bases. The coils and circuit boards will be used on pretty much everything else after this. And that's fine. The stone actually as well. I said copper, but it's stone, of course, over here. However, the iron at some point is no longer used. Rather than that, some of these buildings start using steel. So we need to make sure we add steel to the mix. Similarly, some of these buildings need glass. So we need to add that in. But gears are no longer used, so I made sure all the items that need gear are on the right side over here, and then all the items that need glasses that are on the left. Some of them also need prisms, or actually you need to make prisms and turn those into plasma exciters. It's only a few buildings that need those, but are quite important. So this is why you see some of these productions over here. I'm making prisms over here from the glass, turning those into plasma exciters and turning those into the buildings. You could do that differently. You can, of course, make plasma exciters somewhere else, and then manually make sure they get to your buildings in some other way. I like doing it in line because you don't need plasma exciters for anything else for the moment other than these two buildings. Doing it like this, it's not the fastest production, but you don't need a huge amount of these buildings anyway at the start. Again, this is just something that will chug away while you're doing something else, and by the time you get back, there will be plenty of buildings waiting for you. But yeah, we do need to make sure we actually have the steel coming in, so that's why we're building this. And if I wasn't talking so much, this would be already done probably. But we have now connected this up, so we have the steel going all the way around here. A little inconvenient considering it would be a lot easier to do it differently, as in having the steel coming from somewhere up here, but there's no steel up here. So yeah, we just go all the way around for this time. But let's just make sure that there will actually be steel coming to this building. Now we also need glass, and once again I just suggest to use one of the blueprints over here. For example, this one. Make some glass. It's a full belt worth. You actually don't need a full belt, but hey, might as well make use of the resource you have. Connect that up. There we go. Simple but effective. We do need to make sure we have power reaching over here. Oh, that's so inconvenient. Just one step short of actually reaching everything. But that should make sure that problem is handled. Stone gets turned into glass. Make sure you set the recipe on this because it hasn't been set yet. I considered making a specific build for that, as in just this same thing but then with glass already programmed, but yeah, that's really overkill if you ask me, so I didn't do that. You can either make a little bridge over here or you can use a splitter. The splitters are actually in the line here as well. I rarely use them, at least in the early game. But yeah, you can if you want, and just again to show you, it does look kind of neat if you use them like that. Just really, I can't stress this enough. Don't forget to set the sorting on the priorities. If you do forget, yeah, you get to clean up the mess afterwards, and that's really annoying. So yeah, don't forget about that. So we want steel to go up here. There we go. And that means everything else, in this case, that will be only glass, goes over there. There we go. Let's see, engines. Can we craft engines? Of course we can, but we don't have the materials on us at the moment. Let's just wait for this to be completed first before we start running off and crafting new things. Putting in a few wind turbines for power. It's probably just me hogging all the power at the moment, but yeah. How are we on power if I remove this? Actually still pretty low, so we will want to work on that. But yeah, let's just look at how awesome this is. So, we have glass coming in. We have steel almost coming in. Not quite just yet. We also need some more boxes over here. So let's go pick those up. Oh, some of these buildings are not actually producing either. Because there's... Apparently I ran away when there's only one left to make it over there. But that should fix that. Oh right, one thing to mention. You should actually, because plasma exciters do need coils, and I ran out of space in my blueprint, you do need to continue this line. Just a little further. And then hook that up to the plasma exciters over there. If you actually want them to do anything. Well, always check and make sure that there's enough power going to everything. There is these sorters in here, so you can't just put power towers anywhere. But that should take care of that. So now we actually have those plasma exciters doing their job. There we go. That should take care of most of the last steel production. And now it is almost complete. So while we charge up, let's watch the steel coming in. And there we go. So we have foundations being created here, which is something you need in order to build through the ocean or on the ocean. Fill in the ocean, whatever you want to call it. You also need soil pile for that, which is for some reason impossible for me to pronounce, so I'll just call it dirt. We'll get to that in the next episode, but yeah, if you can see here, we have the power items here. So we have the power towers, we have the wind turbines getting created over here, so let's take about 37 of those. We have the thermal power stations being created over here as well. I tend to avoid using them once again because they take up resources that you can use for other things as well. Then burning them for power, they will run out at some point, and if you forget about it, they run out, your entire production gets kind of demolished. So that's really annoying. At least I find that very, very annoying. So I try to avoid using them, but I put them in here because they are quite popular. So just in case you want to use them, please do. Boxes, sorters, more generic stuff. Then we have things that have to do with water, basically, and liquids, because we have the tanks over here where you can put in the liquids. We have the pumps. You don't need a lot of pumps, but yeah, handcrafting them could be an option, but you might as well put them in. They don't really need anything special, hence they're here. We have the matrix labs, of course. We have chemical stations. We have oil refineries and oil, what are these called? Oil extractors. They need steel, so that's where the steel comes in. If you want to speed up certain things, so for example, not bad example, but some of these items you can remove some of these sorters. They're just generic sorters all through all the belts. That means that always works. But of course, some of these buildings don't need some of the materials, and you can hook them up to other belts if you want them to be produced faster. Again, this will be chugging along while you wait for other things to be completed, so by the time you get back, it doesn't really matter if they were constructed a little bit slow, you will have a full stack of them anyway. Yeah, so just double check if all of this is working. It is, so we are getting all of these buildings created. You can see this in the boxes, they're all lit up with the item that was first put in them. You can also see we are making a lot more steel and a lot more glass than we need. We have a lot more circuit boards than we need. The main thing that you always need more of is stone at some point, depending on a little bit on what you're actually crafting. That is something you might want to consider, because if you look at this building specifically, it is creating foundations. You can use a lot of those, but the bottleneck here are the stones. So what you could do is remove the circuit board from this. As you can tell, they don't need any circuit boards. And then do that, copy that twice. That just means there's more stone coming in. Oh, apparently I now also copied in the circuit boards from this side. Anyway, doesn't matter. There's more coming in. That means this speeds up the production of the foundations. It's almost at full speed, and it would be at full speed if I had full power. So while I'm talking, might as well plop down a few of these. There we go. And yeah, foundations are awesome. You might actually want to make sure it's always making the most you can. Keep in mind though, it stacks up to 1000, which sounds like a lot. It really isn't. But it will take a while for that to be created in this way. So this is one of the production buildings we might want to speed up later on. But for now, that's fine. That concludes this part of the episode. So now we have our little hub set up over here. We can just pick up all the buildings we might ever want to build. Full stacks of power towers, yes please. 50 smelters, yeah, why not? And 50 assemblers, yes, why not? And you can see I didn't spend any time waiting or anything like that. This all got produced pretty fast, and that makes sure we are good to go for the next part of our session. What I will do in the meanwhile is actually make sure we research a few things. No, actually I will just do that during the next session. And I will see you in that. I hope you enjoyed this one. Again, the blueprints will be in the description of this video, so you can just copy paste that in. Go to blueprints, you add a new blueprint, click on it, and say paste whatever is on your what is it called? Your copy paste area in your computer. Not sure what the English word for it is, but anyway, if you just copy paste it in here, you can use the blueprints yourself, and you can play along or improve on the blueprints. Yeah, whatever you want. It's a nice little convenient thing for you that I made, so please feel free to make use of that. I hope to see you in the next one. Like and subscribe if you haven't, and yeah, see you next time.